Buffalo, born and raised. I was born in a hospital there. I went to Chicago for med school. I came back to Buffalo for residency. Worked 2 years here in Rochester, actually on Hudson Street. That was my clinic. And then from there, I went back to Buffalo because I had a lot of family over there. So it's very nice to be back in Rochester and very nice to meet all of you. Today I just want to introduce Nushoor Institute. So without further ado, has anyone seen this picture before? Probably not, right? It's a desert house. So this is a place called Kibbutz Hatzarim. The early Zionists who established this in the Negev desert had a problem, right? They wanted to establish in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s settlements in very strategic areas. But the problem was the ground was salty. They didn't have much water. They didn't have a lot of the resources that they do today. So what did they do, right? And of course, also people didn't want them there, right? It was a very different situation. So what they did is that they innovated. So this Kibbutz Hatzarim, they're talking about their situation. They're talking about, hey, we found out we can't even live in this place. We don't have much resources, but we need to. This is strategically important that we stay right here. So what they did is they innovated. This is Simcha Bloss. He's an agricultural engineer. He actually created something called drip agriculture. And one of the reasons that prompted him to create these micro drippers is actually to sustain plants. So you can see that they're created because of modern plastics really came in the 1950s. He was able to create these unique little micro drippers that fed water to the plant, to the root structure at the right place at the right time. So a gallon of water, right, would when they would use their agricultural practices before, a gallon of water maybe would run out in 2 days. With these little micro drippers, a gallon of water could now last a couple of weeks, which means you could take Kibbutz Hatzarim from something that looks like this, and this is what it looks like today, right? So they not only were able to survive, they thrived. And out of this technology, this micro drip irrigation technology, they were able to create a company called Netafilm, which focuses on drip agriculture. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry internationally, not just here in the United States. But they did something else. All these innovations that allowed them to survive in these settlements, in these kibbutz, they actually used that to gain hearts and minds. So this is a nonprofit started by Israel. It's called Innovation Africa. It's both in Israel and in the United States. What do? They take Israeli technology, like drip agriculture, like different solar technologies, like agricultural technologies, and give them to disenfranchised communities in Africa. But you might think, oh, why do they want to do that? They talk about it. They tell you why they want to do it. They want to get the hearts and minds of people and build a positive image. And they can do so, why? Because they have the capability to benefit people. Another example, right? So you heard a little bit about the Jewish community, right? I'm going to talk a little bit about the Christian community. The Christian community has built companies focused on communication technologies, specifically radio communication technologies. And this company is called Galcom. They focus on disenfranchised communities in Africa and in Asia. And a lot of them are in the Muslim world. Why? Because one is, okay, they want to help the communities, help them communicate. But the second reason is, well, they want to spread the gospel. They're pretty clear about it when you go on the website. And many of these, you think it's just one company? No, it's many of these companies. One of these companies is called Misavia. Misavia actually created this portable radio in the 1960s that helped Congolese missionaries survive during the Simba Revolution. Anyone who knows about this revolution, it was very bloody, it was very terrible. And Christian white missionaries were stuck, and they were able to call and coordinate their rescue because of that radio. So, and guess what? That radio was built by Christian missionary research organizations. So this intersection between essential needs, right, and essential needs, and what I'm talking about is disenfranchised communities, right? The Christian community is looking out for the Christian community, the Jewish community is looking out for the Jewish community. So essential needs research, right, driven by a religious purpose, or religious, you can say activism. This nexus between the two actually has a lot of organizations behind it. it. The ones I've listed on the top are just a few. These are Jewish, these are Christian, these are Buddhist, these are Hindu. Where's the Muslim one? Anyone know of any Muslim one? I don't. So that's why I want to introduce Nushoor Institute. And at Nushoor, we are focused on, we are the Ummah that's privileged. I think no one denies that. We want to build bridges and connect with the Ummah that's suffering. Living here in the United States, we have unique advantages, and I'll tell you what they are. One, we have access to financial capital. Even if you don't have it, you know people who have it all around you. You see it. People brag about it. You have access to intellectual talent, right? Around the world, people who want to do research, where do they come? They come here to the United States. They don't go to Egypt, they don't go to India, they don't go to Saudi, they come here to America. And this is including many, many, many researchers from the Muslim world. In fact, many of your parents, I would bet, came here to the United States for an education, right? And they decided to stay. And then third, we have access to a tinkering culture. People here, especially if you delve deep into YouTube, and they love to make stuff. Well, and this is not prompting from a university, this is not prompting from a government or from a company. They just love to make stuff. And you talk about whatever field it is, they just love to make stuff. So we have these unique advantages and unique privileges. And what does that unique privilege mean? You have a unique responsibility, right? And the third is Nushoor Institute. We focus on what we call decentralized technologies, decentralized methods. Let me give you an example. You want to benefit, someone for electricity, someone who's living in the Rohingya camps in Bangladesh, right? They don't have electricity. You want to give them electricity, and then you think, hey, you know what? Nuclear power is pretty safe. I want to build a nuclear power plant. It doesn't make sense, right? They don't have. There's so many barriers. There's so many access barriers. The government, is corrupt. It's like moving a mountain. What you could do is build technology so the person himself can benefit. The community or the neighborhood or the family can rebuild that kind of technology and they can benefit. So I want to talk about some of our past projects, right? So if you guys remember in 2024, if you guys are from Bangladesh, you definitely know this. There was flash floods, especially in the Feni region. I'm not from Bangladesh, but I closely follow events over there. So during this flood crisis, many people died and many people suffered, and they had an issue with communications, because what happens in natural disaster? You don't have cell towers that get destroyed. So now suddenly people are not able to communicate with their loved ones. People panic. And who came to the rescue? It was actually the amateur radio operators. When I say amateur, these guys are not doing this by profession, it's just what they like to do. These guys came and filled that void of providing essential communication. And that actually gave us an idea. So we said, look, I know in South Asia, especially where I'm from in India, where my extended family lives, they have an issue with communication, especially when there's mob violence, they turn off the telecommunication services. What do you do? So we said, okay, you know what? We want to create a solution that's specific to them. And when we studied the situation, we realized that they had a type of radio where they didn't have anywhere else. It's called Baofan UV5R. It's a radio that was commonly available. In fact, people were able to purchase it. My cousins purchased it on the Indian version of Amazon, the store. And this radio costs about 15 bucks. It's pretty cheap. And they purchased it, and now we had an idea. There's an issue with it. When you take it out of the package and you use it right away, the range is about 1/4 of a mile. That doesn't help many people. You want it to reach many, many people, right, for public service announcements and whatnot. So there's two parts to a radio. One is the transceiver, the actual radio, and the other is the antenna. And we said, how can we expand the range so it actually benefits people over there, and they're able to replicate what we do here? We joined our local ham radio club. And in the radio club, we talked about a real situation, that we are 20 guys, we're going on a hiking trip, which is actually the truth. In summer of 2024, we were going on a hiking trip in the Adirondack Mountains, 20 of us. And we needed a safe way to communicate with other people, and a reliable method. So we said, we took this as something, as a project. So we said, you know what? Right now, we're going to ask them and take the help from our ham radio club. So we asked the amateur radio club, and there's about 50 people who can mentor you, and they said, Well, you know what? Have you looked into the flower pot antenna? So we say, what's that? Well, in Ukraine in the 1990s, they invented this antenna that's like, made from a PVC pipe and made from something called a coax cable. Maybe many of you know what that is. It's the cable you plug it into the Wi-Fi router, and it's commonly available in many places. You just have to find the right specifications. The version we used was called RG58 with the 50 ohm resistance. And what you do is you take that wire, you wrap it around a PVC pipe a couple times depending on what frequency you want to use it at, and then you strip a portion of it down to the metal braid, and strip the other portion of it down to the copper core. When you do that, you can see right here, you create a pretty effective antenna. So back to the Adirondacks, we took this to the Adirondacks to test it out, and 20 people went in. The objective was we were going to go in at fudge time, 6 a.m.